Thank you, Mr. Betts, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I'd like to, I'm very pleased to say that I'm pleased to have secured this debate. It's hard to measure the true economic value of the technology sector in the UK, but what I think we all agree on is the huge importance of the sector for economic growth, productivity and society as a whole. This importance is only going to grow in the future. So nurturing and supporting our domestic technology sector is absolutely vital. Now, to be clear, as a Conservative, I believe in the importance of competition as a driver for innovation and economic growth. And true competition means we need to challenge monopolies. Competition is vital for our tech sector if it is to thrive in the future, or else we will see innovative firms leave the UK. An area I want to particularly focus on today is our domestic app ecosystem. The UK mobile app ecosystem generates 28 billion in GVA annually, equivalent to nearly 1% of GDP. It also supports around 400,000 jobs, the highest of any country in Europe. However, despite this huge contribution to our economy, app developers face significant challenges. Apple and Google control 95% of all mobile operating systems in the UK, and the CMA formally designated them with strategic market status in October 2025. Now, this doesn't mean they just run the app stores. They have control over far more than that. They control what developers can say within them. They block developer communications with consumers, hide customer details from developers, and prevent developers from telling users when something is new, something is better or cheaper, and all the while taking up to 30% of every transaction. This doesn't just stifle the sector domestically, it pushes up prices for ordinary consumers and drives British innovation overseas. We simply cannot afford to allow such a growing industry to be lost. Of course, I'll give way.
Congratulate the Honourable Member for Bromley and Biggin Hill for securing today's important debate on government support for UK-based tech companies, because my Slough constituency is a huge tech and data hub, and indeed has the second largest concentration of data centres anywhere in the world, Sir Clive. Does my honourable friend agree that it would be an act of folly for the government to not designate Slough as an AI growth zone, given that £1 spent there provides much more return for the UK economy, and we as a nation wouldn't want to lose that?
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention, and I have a list of government follies here, if he would like me to push them on to. Being serious, I completely agree with him of the importance of the jobs, the importance of the industry, and I'm sure the Minister will like to pick up this when he responds later. Thank you very much. To continue, Mr. Betts, I want to give you an example of some of these platforms, these monopolies. Amazon was forced to remove the buy book button from its Kindle app on iPhones because Apple demanded a 30% cut of every e-book sale. Authors simply cannot afford to forego that 30%. Instead, readers had to, and this is absurd, they had to close the app and log on into the Amazon system separately, complete their purchase, and then reopen the Kindle app. It was only thanks to a court case in the United States which forced Apple's hand that the buy book button returned. Spotify cannot include a subscribe button in its iOS app, or tell users in the app what a subscription costs, or that a cheaper option exists outside the app. UK Spotify Premium subscribers have faced 3 price rises in 2 years, partly because Apple's 30% cut has to be absorbed somewhere. Every Spotify user in the UK is paying more, and Apple's rules are a direct reason why. Now, there are many similar cases to this where Apple and Google are inserting themselves directly into the relationship between developers and consumers by forcing developers to use their payment systems. This takes away a consumer's ability to choose their preferred payment method, causes greater friction around issues such as refunds and cancellations, and prevents consumers from properly benefiting from lower prices or discounts. The UK Competition Appeal Tribunal ruled in October 2025 that Apple's payment restrictions were neither necessary nor proportionate for security or privacy purposes. They were designed to eliminate competition It is as simple as that. Now, it's estimated that removing these restrictions would release 1.75 billion a year currently taken from UK developers and consumers, rising to over 4 billion annually by 2029. That could then go back into British engineering, creative content, and the next generation of app businesses built and scaled here. We can unleash the true potential of these industries. The ability to remove the restrictions and hand UK app developers their rights back already exists in legislation. The Digital Markets, Competition and Consumers Act gave the CMA conduct requirement powers, not just the ability to levy fines, but the ability to mandate specific behaviours. The CMA can end Apple and Google's control over in-app communication, ensuring that developers are free to know their own customers and tell their own customers what their own product costs and where to buy it at the best price. I would ask the Minister to outline what view the government takes on pressing the CMA to issue conduct requirements that protect competition. Another area we must look at is cloud computing. The UK's digital economy is underpinned by cloud computing, but cloud has been increasingly monopolised. The CMA's Cloud Services Market Investigation estimated that Amazon Web Services and Microsoft control 70 to 90% of the UK cloud computing market. This concentration poses a number of dependency risks, including operational, financial, and security vulnerabilities, and also restrict market innovation and customer choice. Just months after the government published its chronic risk analysis, there were 3 global cloud outages within a matter of weeks. In 2 of these, Amazon Web Services and Microsoft were directly impacted, highlighting the risks of over-reliance on limited cloud hosts. Governments, businesses, digital platforms, AI services, and individuals were materially impacted by those outages, with US companies alone suffering losses of between 500 and 650 million. Indeed, the recent CrowdStrike outage has been estimated to have cost the UK economy between 1.7 and 2.3 billion. Competition can be the key mitigation for the UK's digital dependency. And again, it is the CMA that holds the levers to tackle anti-competitive conduct and address the risks of cloud concentration. I am not calling for more legislation or regulation. We don't need it. The Digital Markets, Competition and Consumers Act, brought in by the last Conservative government, has already legislated for stronger digital competition. But slow implementation and weak early enforcement risk squandering a rare pro-growth, pro-SME opportunity. Only a small number of designations have been made so far, and for Google and Apple's mobile ecosystems, the CMA has relied on non-binding commitments rather than imposing binding conduct requirements. These non-binding commitments have no clear statutory basis under the DMCCA, carry no legal consequences if breached, and are not contemplated anywhere in the CMA's published guidance. Their use risks weakening the regime, forcing the CMA to restart enforcement if firms fail to comply, which is precisely the outcome the last government sought to avoid. It is also concerning that a requirement for Google to negotiate fair terms with news publishers has been pushed back by at least 12 months, despite the CMA previously committing to use this power in the first half of the year. So the government must reaffirm that robust digital competition enforcement is pro-growth and central to the UK's industrial strategy. Moreover, the CMA must ensure that there is robust competition enforcement. The levers to achieve this were put there by the last government. It just requires some political will. Because fundamentally, the UK cannot build globally competitive tech firms whilst a handful of dominant platforms control the route to market, the route to search, app stores, mobile ecosystems, cloud, and our key AI infrastructure. The potential for huge economic growth from our tech sector is there, but competition is key. If competition flourishes, we will see more innovation, improved services, and lower costs for consumers. Thank you.
Right. The question is that this House has considered government support for UK-based tech companies. They've got 5 speakers, so that probably gives us about between 8 and 10 minutes, maximum 10, then we can get the front benchers in after that. And so, first of all, I call Chris Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Betts. It's indeed a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I generally hope that you have some good news about Sheffield Wednesday in the next few days. For constituents...
Good news this morning, so that's moved us forward. Just to make sure everyone's up to date with the important information.
I stand corrected, Mr. Betts. I was in meetings all morning. I haven't seen the sports news yet. For constituencies like mine, Mr. Betts, which were dependent on heavy industry, the development of high technology offers new growth opportunities, which we can harness in our valley communities once again. I want to focus my comments in the next few minutes on a company called Academy. Academy helps organisations improve their workplace training by replacing a one-size-fits-all learning with a streamlined content, smart delivery and measurable outcomes. It is used by major employers in the energy and utility sectors, as well as by the NHS, community health boards and international clients. Earlier this year, the business secured £700,000 of investment from the Welsh Labour government to further develop their platform and expand their workforce. Academy is a powerful example of what a talented team of entrepreneurs and technicians can achieve when united behind a cutting-edge idea. I firmly believe that this spirit can be fostered in our universities, and they can become the powerhouse of technological change across South Wales. Clusters in university campuses can form the basis of a spin-out company, which under the umbrella of a higher educational institution take groundbreaking research and transform it into a ready-market product or service. Spin-outs are widely recognised for their highly effective, lucrative and sustainable business models. The success is driven by the dynamic and entrepreneurial culture, which involves faster decision-making, greater flexibility and a higher appetite for risk-taking.
On that point, I'm incredibly grateful to him for giving away, and on the exact argument he's making, I recently visited the Nexus Innovation Hub at the University of Leeds, which does the things that he was just describing, innovative spin-offs and companies that are genuinely innovating in really challenging areas, but they struggle to access government procurement because they don't have things like cyber essentials, but they do have the equivalent accreditation from international organisations. Does he agree that government should do more to recognise these accreditations so that we don't stifle innovation?
Well, I'm always happy to give interventions, but I'm afraid the Honourable Gentleman seems to have written my speech for me because I'll develop that as I go along. And I notice he's from Leeds, and obviously Leeds pinch all of Sheffield Wednesday's best managers, don't they, Mr. Betts? Spin-outs offer postgraduate students the sought-after opportunity to work in a start-up, allowing them to develop skills and experience outside of academia. At a time when many graduates are struggling to navigate the job market, spin-out companies can be a fantastic place to start their career. In places like Wales, Northern Ireland and the North East, which traditionally has been reliant on public sector work and has a lack of entrepreneurship, these spin-out companies can remedy these problems. Young people can found these companies, and young people can work in them. Their success boosts employment, boosts the economy, and boosts investment in higher education. In 2024 alone, spin-outs channelled a record £3.35 billion of investment in university research. This not only benefits the economy, but also ensures that promising technologies are not abandoned due to lack of funding. Whilst much of this funding is awarded to spin-outs in the Golden Triangle of Oxford, Cambridge and London, Swansea University has bucked the trend. It has emerged as one of the UK's leading academic institutions for generating spin-out companies, having established 58 spin-outs since 2011. Swansea's recent success included Ale Iron, a business that recovers silver from printed electronics, and Corin Biotechnologies, which has designed wound dressing that mimics the natural healing process of the skin. Celtic Vascular Limited is another Welsh spin-out that deserves recognition for their groundbreaking work. Their team of researchers have pioneered AI-driven software that detects coronary heart disease with 92% accuracy. I am proud that Welsh universities are leading the way in generating spin-out companies and inspire others outside of the Golden Triangle to do the same. However, the government must do more to support spin-outs companies. The biggest challenge that academics face when spinning out is finding the financial support to bridge the initial gap from the lab to the market. This challenge was recognised by the UK Government in its 2024 autumn budget, during which £40 million worth of funding was allocated to early-stage spin-out companies. While this funding is welcome, it falls short of what is needed. For context, £40 million is approximately the cost of bringing just 2 drug discovery programmes from inception to first in human clinical trials. Yet, for a share of the government's first £9 million tranche in 2025, UKRI was overwhelmed with over 2,750 expressions of interest. There is a huge gap in funding at the point where researchers want to bring the discoveries out of the lab. UK-based investors largely avoid scale-up investments, unwilling to take risks on products that have not yet been prototyped or introduced to market. The grants awarded by Innovate UK are simply unreliable, reaching a peak of £150 million in 2023. Its funding for spin-outs fell by 44.5% in 2024 to £83.83 million. This reflects a shift in the government's wider investment strategy, in which the allocation of research and innovation grants is becoming more targeted and selective. Early-stage spin-out companies have directly lost out to this new strategy. In January 2026, Innovate UK paused its Smart Grants programme, which was designed to bring original, high-impact innovations to the marketplace. In its place, a new growth catalyst programme was opened, targeted spin-outs that are ready to scale. Grants from this scheme must be aligned with private investment, meaning that eligible companies are expected to be market-ready. It is said a valley of death has subsequently emerged between the lab and the market, which many potentially game-changing innovations fail to span. To avoid this, as my honourable friend said, they are forced to rely on the US for capital, and in return, its facilities and workforce are based across the Atlantic. Ministers have a duty to turn the tide on this issue. With better UK-based support, this country's technology, healthcare and life sciences sectors, let alone the economy, will be much richer and emboldened. Therefore, I ask the Minister whether they will provide more financial support to projects in pre-investment phases of development, beyond the £40 million set aside in the autumn budget in 2024. And will they allow the British Business Bank to play a key role in providing this support, given its recent expansion and position at the heart of the government's own growth agenda? I do not need to tell the Minister, who is also a fellow Welsh MP, Wales is home to a wealth of talent, innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. I want to see this nation thrive, but this can only happen if the government provides the support and investment needed to unlock its full potential. I call on the government to do just that, before other states around the world do it for us. Thank you.
Right. Mike Martin.
Chairship, and I'd like to congratulate the member for Bromley and Biggin Hill as well for securing this very important debate. I think we're hearing from all sides of the chamber that the British tech sector is spread into all of our constituencies. This is a matter of all of our concern. So when this government came to power, its central mission was to provide growth, and I'd like to posit that a key way we can do that is by supporting our small and medium-sized businesses, because that's where growth comes from. If you have a small business and it doubles in size from 2 to 4 people, then of course I will.
I wonder if he will share my view that while we can be rightly proud of having the 3rd most valuable tech ecosystem in the world, we cannot be complacent, especially amid increasing international uncertainty. Sheer World Data in my constituency, exactly the sort of business that my honourable friend has referred to, is a family-run business founded by Richard Webber in 1992, and it now exports live flock management systems internationally. Mr Webber is a true local champion because not only does he run this fantastic family business, he works at the heart of our community in Wedden Cross. And does he also agree that the flight of UK tech companies to other markets, like the United States, show that we must do more to ensure British companies can start, stay and scale here?
I thank her for her comprehensive intervention. I think it speaks to exactly the issues that I'm going to raise. And the key example is actually DeepMind. So DeepMind was the world-leading AI company, and we, the Brits, failed to create the ecosystem and the funding and the risk-taking capital to enable it to scale fully. and then it got bought by Google, and now the British government contracts with Google rather than contracting with DeepMind. And so this is exactly the fear that I have, even though we are the world's third AI power, that could move away from us very quickly if we don't create the right ecosystem that supports our tech firms. So back to what I was saying, that if this government is serious about supporting growth, then I think we need to look at those small and medium enterprises. And it won't surprise honourable members, that I'm going to use some examples from my constituency of Tunbridge Wells. So I'm going to speak about Capital Web, which develop AI software to help businesses improve productivity. So it's on the application side of AI. We're never going to compete on the frontier model side of AI, but we certainly can compete in the UK on how we implement those frontier models to work cases. And then to Adzuna, which is a firm based in Tunbridge Wells that helps people find jobs. I'm going to give a bit more detail of that. So I think the problem that we have in the UK is this one of scaling up. And often you find, for businesses that are at the very small stages, we do have support from those. We might have R&D tax credits, or we might have innovation grants, or we might help them spin directly out of universities. But then moving from that position where they have a concept, they have a patent, and perhaps they're ready to scale rapidly, that just doesn't happen in the UK. And those firms are left to either go abroad, to be taken over, or perhaps to wither and see the market move on and eclipse them. And I think this is the real danger. And of course.
I held a roundtable in Westminster in my constituency with the Startup Coalition just 2 weeks ago, and one of the biggest barriers that we found was not an absence of talent or expertise in my town. It was a poverty of access to information, advice and guidance, and one of the things was the small business startup loans, the £500 to £25,000 government-backed loans that were really critical. None of them had heard about those, and that was one of the things that they were really critically needing. So there's a big issue, and one of the things that I would ask the Minister about is how we improve that communication to places like Weston-super-Mare. So I thank him for what he was saying.
Right, Martin.
I think it's an excellent point, and it's very much something that the government can do, because it does understand where capital can be found. It does understand how to create the legal and the regulatory ecosystem that enables these companies to thrive. So I just want to touch briefly on access to capital. I'm thinking slightly larger amounts than the amounts that the honourable member across the House mentioned to me. But pension funds are a huge source of capital. In the UK, there are trillions under management in our pension funds, and this is something that Canada does very well. And in Canada, their pension funds operate almost like specialist investors, where they pump billions of dollars into AI and infrastructure and software. And to pick another example, again dear to my constituency, South East Water, who many of you will have seen me rail against, owned 25% of them is owned by NatWest Pensions, so our favourite, cuddly UK bank. But their pension fund owns 25% of South East Water, and they make their money by selling debt to South East Water at a rate of 10% interest. And this is not a pension fund investment that is driving growth in the UK. And so we must do better. We must think about how we can push and guide our pension funds and all of those millions that are under investment to invest in growth sectors in the UK rather than going abroad. I also want to touch on reforming public procurement. And at the worst end of the spectrum is probably the MOD, where it takes 6 years from first contact to signing a contract. That's just to sign the contract. That's not to deliver the piece of military hardware and to test it or to have it in service. The stories out of MOD procurement would not be out of place in an episode of The Thick of It. And that is the worst case. But even the DWP, so Andrew in my constituency founded Adzuna, which is effectively a super-duper job search thing that uses AI to match people's profiles to the, the skills that are needed and so on and so forth. It took him 2.5 years from approaching the DWP to signing a contract. And if you're a small organisation, Andrew started this with a laptop on his kitchen table. If you are that size of business, you can't wait 2.5 years. Cash is king. You will have gone out of business, or you will have decided to have gone somewhere else by the time that that contract is offered. And whether it's in defence, where you actually need to contract much more quickly because of the pace of technological change, or whether it's government who actually need an effective job search tool on their websites, that needs to be compressed. Those timescales need to be compressed, and that way they open themselves up much more to small firms rather than big firms who are able to take 2.5 years on a punt with a contract with a DWP. So I think I'll conclude there, Mr. Betts, and just really to sum up, I just think there are a number of things that the government could do around information sharing, and I thank the honourable member over there, around access to capital and encouraging particularly pension funds to invest, and looking at procurement and focusing that on small businesses, because small businesses are the ones that deliver growth. That is where we get growth in our economy, much more so than big businesses. And the government has a huge set of levers to pull, and I implore the Minister, perhaps we could start pulling them, and I look forward to his remarks afterwards. Thank you, Mr. Betts.
Mr. Taylor.
I thank the honourable member for Bromley and Biggin Hill for bringing such an important debate, one of significance to my own constituency of Paisley and Renfrewshire North, and the role it plays in supporting UK-based tech companies. In my former career as a chartered surveyor, I worked on a project in the constituency to create an innovation zone around Glasgow International Airport, funded in part by the UK Government's City deal. The Chancellor has now committed to further support with UK Government direct investment of £38 million to expand this project. This Labour Government's commitment to continue to invest directly in long-term initiatives like this is most welcome, and this has made a huge impact on the economic and upskilling opportunities for generations of residents in my constituency. The zone, which includes the Advanced Manufacturing District Scotland, also known as AMIDS, would not be there without UK Government support, which has helped to fund large infrastructure works, including 2 new bridges, land reclamation, decontamination and active travel routes. All of this preparatory construction work paved the way for the iconic anchor building to be completed, the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland. Its completion has already acted as a catalyst for future investment. It is helping make tech companies more productive, more resilient and more sustainable. It pioneers and harnesses AI to drive smarter, data-led production, turning breakthrough ideas and inventions into high-impact industrial products. The National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland is also a leader in the circular economy and in recycling industrial products like wind turbine blades. Working in conjunction with academia from across Scotland and the local West College Scotland, this collaboration drives innovation and new technologies. This new innovation zone is supporting emerging sectors like photonics, which is important for medical imaging, solar power and high-speed telecoms. Advanced manufacturing here will also support sectors like net zero shipping, energy-efficient aerospace, the circular economy and green jobs. It is a model for how the government can drive growth and support innovation in the tech sector. Can I conclude by thanking the government for undertaking recently to identify barriers to growth including looking at further measures to support access to finance, crucial to the emerging tech sector. All of these measures are most welcome. Thank you.
First of all, a real pleasure as always to serve under your chairship, and thank you for all you do for us in relation to Westminster Hall. Can I thank the honourable gentleman for Bromley and Biggin Hill for raising the issue today, and thereby giving us all an opportunity to participate and so on to the debate. Always good to see the Minister in his place. I wish him well in the role he plays, and we look very much forward to his response. Northern Ireland has become the cyber. I'm going to say good things about Northern Ireland. I always say good things about Northern Ireland, but I'm going to say things that that put us, I believe, at the top of the tree when it comes to cyber security. Northern Ireland has become the cyber security centre of Europe, and increasingly possible, maybe even the global cyber security centre. And this is something that did not simply arise out of nowhere. There has been a dedicated focus to invest in the sector, to train young people to think differently and to be involved. My parliamentary aide attended a grammar school which was typically focused on the maths, the English language and the science side. And yet she recalls a careers day when an advisor from Queen's University in Belfast came in and advised them to consider tech and computer science, saying that this would be the future of employment and job security in Northern Ireland. That was back in the year 2000. How right and how prophetic that university advisor was. And sometimes in life, along life's way, you'll meet people who will have an incredible influence in your lives, and we all have them, and we can look back through our own lives and that. But that university advisor was one of those people with a vision, and a vision for young people, and many of those people that he taught are now in that category and in that department and in that section. Absolutely, yeah.
To pay tribute to a number of lecturers at the universities in Northern Ireland. I used to work for the British Computer Society, and the Northern Ireland branch was phenomenal. And if the honourable gentleman hasn't made contact with them yet to speak to them about the cybersecurity work in Northern Ireland, they would be a fantastic group of people for him to connect with. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the intervention. It's always good to get an intervention that reinforces the point of view that I've put forward, and obviously the honourable gentleman has a personal knowledge of that, and we thank him for that as well. Due to the dedication and focus of those universities, and in particular Queen's University in Belfast, it quickly became a focal point for careers and subsequently Northern Ireland due to its unique combination of world-class academic research, high concentration of global firms, and a stable, highly skilled talent pipeline. Has a well-established reputation. However, we all know that you can never rest on your achievements or on your laurels, but continue to strive for more. And this is why it's imperative that funding exists to keep the pace and outstrip competitors in terms of skilled workers and innovation, supported by world-leading university structures. Northern Ireland clearly leads away in that, and it's good to have that. The Centre for Secure Information Technology at Queen's University in Belfast is the primary driver of world-class academic research, and we need to retain and enhance funding for this to happen. It is the UK's Innovation and Knowledge Centre for Cybersecurity, and the largest of its kind in Europe, recognised by the National Cybersecurity Centre as an academic centre of excellence in both research and education. Those are big plaudits for Queen's University and what they do. Belfast is consistently ranked as the #1 global destination for US-based cybersecurity foreign direct investment, with over 100 cybersecurity businesses and teams located within just 3 miles of the city centre, hosting European or global security operations for firms including Rapid7, Proofpoint, IBM Security, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Nion Cyber Defence, as well as international financial giants such as Aflac, Allstate and Citi, who have established their global cyber security operations centres in Belfast. Again, an indication of confidence from across the world in Belfast, in Queen's University and in Northern Ireland. We have the highest percentage of qualified IT professionals in the United Kingdom and Ireland, with over 77% holding degree-level qualifications. Added to this, the fact that operating costs in Northern Ireland are approximately 40 to 55% lower than other parts of Western Europe, with a 40% reduction in typical salary costs compared to London. It's easy to see the attraction and the money that has been invested in growing this space has had a real return to the local economy. High-paying jobs, plenty of them, and opportunity. The sector generates more than 258 million in direct GVA annually for the local economy. It supports approximately almost 2,800 roles across 120 plus companies, with the average advertised salary in the sector exceeding £53,000, significantly higher than the regional private sector median, and the recent £3 million investment into the Centre for Secure Information Technologies is estimated to unlock some 10.7 million in broader economic impact across the United Kingdom. I'm not quite sure if the Minister in his role has had a chance to go to Northern Ireland. If he hasn't, could I encourage him to go? I think he'd be impressed, and I think it would also, I believe that everyone knows that I'm very much in favour of support for the Union. I think we're all better together. We've no Scottish nationals here or no Plaid Cymru here to say otherwise. But we are, I believe, in this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, we all help each other. And there's great advantages to be part of this massive and what I would say is the best union in the world. If the Minister gets that opportunity to go, I think he'd be impressed. I think he maybe tell me he's been there. If he has been, that's fantastic news. Investing in growth in this sector is a must. So I look to the Minister to ensure that Northern Ireland sees her share of investment, because we have proven already that we can provide the goods. Indeed, not only will we provide the goods, I believe we can do even more. Thank you so much.
Morello.
Thank you, Mr. Esson. It's an honour to serve under your chairship, and I congratulate the member for Bromley and Biggin Hill for securing this important debate. I suspect at this point I am in danger of labouring the points already made by honourable members, but I shall persist, and perhaps it's a sign that we all know what needs to happen, and I'm sure the Minister will speak to those issues. The UK tech sector employs more than 1.7 million people and contributes over 150 billion to the UK economy. Our technology ecosystem has created more than 185 unicorn companies. Those are companies start-up value at over £1 billion, and I suspect at the end of this debate a word cloud will have the word ecosystem as the largest word on it, but there's good reason for it. Innovation does not happen on its own. It requires the right conditions: access to funding, clear regulation, market confidence, skilled workers, and a government that understands the importance of helping companies grow. That is particularly important for small and medium-sized businesses, which form the backbone of the UK economy. In the UK, there were 5.7 million SMEs, including 5.4 micro businesses in 2025. These companies often develop some of the most exciting ideas, but they also face the greatest challenges when trying to scale up. One area where the UK has a huge opportunity is in climate technology. As the chair of the Climate Tech All-Party Parliamentary Group, and having spent nearly a decade working in renewable energy finance before entering Parliament, I've seen how much potential this sector has. Between now and 2050, the world will need to remove 165 billion tonnes of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, with annual removals reaching about 10 billion tonnes a year by the mid-century if we are to limit global warming to between 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has made clear that without carbon removal technologies, those goals will not be met. This means... Of course I will give way.
Alison Taylor.
Yes, thank you. He mentions a specific sector of the tech economy. Does he agree that tech companies do best when they're clustered together, particularly in innovation zones, so that they can share emerging knowledge and technologies, and particularly link in with academia?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her intervention. I certainly agree that if we want to become a market leader or a world leader in a particular technology space, it absolutely is vital that you channel funding and support into those areas where we have the most opportunity to have a competitive advantage. This means that climate technology is not only an environmental priority, but also a huge economic opportunity to lead a sector the world will need for decades to come. The UK's greenhouse gas removal sector alone is now valued at 1.2 billion, with investment increasing by more than 39% in 2024, faster than the broader technology sector as a whole. According to analysis aligned with the Climate Change Committee's 7th carbon budget, greenhouse gas removal technologies could support over 60,000 high-quality jobs in the UK by 2050. The government has already taken some positive steps. Funding for carbon capture and storage clusters, investment in innovation programmes such as direct air capture and bioenergy carbon capture, and plans for new clean tech innovation challenges, they are all important developments. But challenges remain, particularly when companies try to move from early innovation to large-scale deployment. Many climate technology companies face what is often called the valley of death. Early-stage funding can help get ideas off the ground, but when companies reach pilot or demonstration stage, that funding often disappears. Data shows that while almost all seed-stage companies move forward, only 1/3 successfully progress beyond Series B investment. At this point, the technologies often require significant capital investment to scale, which needs confidence projected by the government to the sectors and to investors. Without stronger support mechanisms, whether through the National Wealth Fund, the British Business Bank or other targeted policies, many promising technologies risk stalling before they ever even reach market. In other sectors, there is more the government can do. In my constituency of West Dorset, there is a fantastic company called Scintella in Dorchester. They developed advanced fibre optic sensing systems capable of detecting movement and activity across long distances of infrastructure. The technology has applications in security, energy systems and environmental monitoring. Last year, the company secured orders from the US Customs and Border Protection worth more than $90 million, and that contract has now been expanded to $200 million through to 2028. This represents the largest contract globally for distributed fibre optic sensing technology. Small companies like Scintella can struggle to gain the same level of access to government support and trade opportunities as larger firms. When business delegations travel abroad with ministers or during state visits, the companies included are often the same large multinational businesses. But SMEs are often where some of the most exciting innovation is happening. If we want to support British tech companies properly, then we must also ensure that small and medium-sized firms are included in trade missions, in international delegations and in export promotion. The UK needs a clear long-term approach to science and technology. That includes raising research and development spending to 3.5% of GDP, investing in digital infrastructure, supporting local government capacity, and ensuring that the benefits of technology are spread around the country. It also means continuing to invest in green technologies, which will be essential if we are to tackle the climate crisis, while also creating new industries and job opportunities. The UK has many of the ingredients needed for success. World-class universities, strong research institutions, and an entrepreneurial technology sector. What we must do now is make sure that the environment is right for these companies to grow.
Right. We now come on to the front benches. Everyone's entitled to at least 10 minutes, but I think you can work out that you've probably got a little bit more if you want to take it. So beginning with the Lib Dem spokesperson, Victoria Collins.
Thank you, Mr Betts. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I also commend the member for Bromley and Biggin Hill for securing this essential debate. So as for me, entrepreneurship is in my blood. Both my parents ran their own business and my mum actually launched her website for her business over 15 years ago and was so tech-savvy that she had a larger Twitter following than me. And that is when it was called Twitter. But as someone who then went on to launch my own tech company and took part in the New Entrepreneur Foundation, I met so many fantastic, great entrepreneurs. And I'm so pleased today that we are here to debate that government support for UK tech. But boy, do we need to have more from the government. On the one hand, the UK tech sector is an immense success story, one we should be proud of. Build on the legacy of Ada Lovelace, Alan Turing and Tim Berners-Lee. The member for Tunbridge Well mentioned DeepMind, and we have indeed the third most valuable tech ecosystem in the world at nearly £1 trillion. On the other hand, the UK tech sector is a story of frustration, stifled potential and a looming threat that great companies and ideas that are incubated here are sold off because of a ceiling of funding. And I felt the most powerful way to tell that story today was to amplify the voices of tech leaders themselves. These are the people who are passionate about growing world-class companies here in the UK, but their frustrations are real, and it often seems more of a fight to innovate than a celebration of progress. So thank you to the scores of tech leaders who shared their views with me. And sadly, I can't get all of those in today, but I think that shows how vital this debate is, and I hope that the government at some point will give this more time. I want to take you briefly then through 5 calls and ask the Minister to address as many as he can. And a lot of this has obviously been reflected by members today. The first one is procurement, procurement, procurement. So even the National Audit Office concluded that the government's procurement strategy actively favours large, predominantly foreign suppliers, something was brought up in a debate yesterday. Stephen Kinnis, who's co-founder of a company, Goldilocks, which is an award-winning cyber hardware company, he calls for the government to buy UK products. He says, don't endlessly innovate in innovation theatre programmes only. And then also heard from Doug Munro, CEO of Adzuna. And so the member of Tunbridge Wells, I'm pleased to hear that Adzuna was able to get a public contract eventually after 2.5 years. But Doug urges the government to buy tech and AI from British startups, not built in-house or bought from massive American companies. And he shares a powerful message that we can transform public services, cut the welfare bill, reduce taxes if only you'd let us. So the government should be celebrating Made in Britain by buying Made in Britain. That's also why the Lib Dems have called for a comprehensive public sector policy and an investment plan and put digital sovereign strategy amendments in the cyber bill. And as the member for Tunbridge Wells mentions, this is about growth. So the second call, fix funding fast. The funding desert, that valley of death that we've heard across today for scale-ups, is well known. But what's worrying is how normalised that has become. And Ben Rose, co-founder of Superseed, warns how many tech firms are forced to attract capital from overseas to continue growing at pace. We all know that story, unfortunately. And Mark Thomas, CEO of Analysis, notes that the SEIS scheme, although well celebrated, that £250,000 limit has been eroded by inflation and rising costs to the point where it barely buys 12 months of runway, and asks that the government look at increasing this limit for this celebrated scheme. Leo Rogers, CEO of Curvo AI, calls for R&D tax credits extended to cover compute costs, something which in a world of AI is something really important to look at. The member for Weston-super-Mare mentioned something important, which is about that smaller financing of a lot of, that was mentioned as well by several entrepreneurs who contacted me to say it's about helping get off the ground to keep growing. And sometimes the funding is there, but it's that communication of where to find it. So that's why the Lib Dems, among other policies, have called for an increase of R&D spending 3.5%, better support from National Wealth Fund and the British Business Bank to de-risk and unlock innovation, as well as a review of IR35, where we find a lot of that workforce who are behind tech are in that. The university spin-out support that the member for Caerphilly mentioned is so important. And again, the member for Tunbridge Wells talks about pension funds, and that use of those mega pension funds, where that money can go, will be so vital in unlocking a lot of the innovation in the UK. So the third point, treasure our talent. It is great talent that grows great companies, not only by upskilling at home, but by attracting experts from overseas. So there are many calls to align, for example, the Innovator Founder Visa with Innovate UK. Claudia, CEO of CIRSA, says that we must make sure that talent visas are easier. And the MP for Strangford, the member for Strangford, mentioned about the skills for the next generation. So also ensuring that part of our talent planning, workforce planning, is as a country is aligned with the skills we need for the future. And that's indeed why, as Lib Dems, we believe there needs to be a national people strategy alongside that industrial strategy. Because without those skills and talent, we can't deliver on the economic ambition. So fourth, think smart regulation. Tech founders understand the importance of avoiding a race to the bottom, but they're often bogged down in red tape. The App Association warns that tech companies are overburdened with regulation, tax, and that uncertainty caused by ever-changing rules. But that's why I believe, and increasingly believe, in the standards and smart, outcome-focused regulation that supports innovation and the pace that's needed, but helps to build trust. And I think what the member for Bromley and Biggin Hill talked about, that use of competition, I think is a really vital aspect of that. And fifth, or finally, but certainly still really vital, is lift up the small businesses and startups. Don't forget the small businesses and startups. So not only are SMEs and startups the backbone of our economy, but all scale-ups started there. Several were mentioned today. Karen, the CEO of Mediaholic, says, I don't feel there's any support for small companies. It feels that government are focusing on the big companies like Meta and Google, which doesn't benefit this country in the long run. Quick wins and vanity rather than a true understanding of what it takes and how. And overall, the government is making it exceptionally difficult for small companies to grow. Another founder put it more starkly. Currently, they feel that Parliament has gamified the system against the success of British SMEs and micro SME innovators. And that's also those elements around whether it's staff costs, business rates, that support in the beginning is something that Liberal Democrats have raised the alarm on and call on the government to do more. And then finally, Alex from Synthesia sums it up well. He just says, buy software made in the UK, simplify procurement for British startups and keep regulation simple and outcome focused. So Mr Betts, I have a dream. And that dream, that dream is not only that we, is that we grow our tech landscape and we have that fantastic UK tech landscape. And as the member for West Dorset talked about, we can solve the biggest problems, whether it's climate change, we can really drive that. But more than that, perhaps we can be the country that actually takes in those scale-ups here in the UK and not fear that the companies that incubate here go elsewhere. And we see that Anthropic, for example, may not be welcome in the US, and I hope they'd be very welcome here in the UK. And so, with that, we say the government must do more to start backing British tech for our security, for our economy, and to back the great people driving innovation in Great Britain, but also globally. Thank you.
On to the opposition spokesperson, Julia Lopez.
Thank you, Mr Betts. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I obviously congratulate my honourable friend for Bromley and Biggin Hill for securing this incredibly important debate. He brings to the House a unique blend of glamour and tech nerdery, and it's something I think, frankly, Parliament could do with much more of. And I'm grateful for the valued contributions, including from the honourable members for Tunbridge Wells, for Strangford, Renfrewshire and West Dorset, Caerphilly. There's a real showing of strength in relation to the tech sector around the country, and it's welcome to hear more about it. And as we're debating government support for UK-based tech companies, I'd like to do a little bit of scene setting. Before 2010, Britain's digital economy was fragmented and underdeveloped. London's emergence as Europe's tech capital was not destiny. Silicon Roundabout was only nascent. Government digital services were scattered across thousands of outdated websites, and the connection between our world-class universities and a thriving start-up ecosystem hadn't yet been fully realised. Conservatives in government worked deliberately with the tech sector to create an environment in which it could grow. It's a point being made by the honourable member for West Dorset about how we need to create the environment in which our technology sector can grow, and that included targeted measures on start-up like the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. Scale-up has been mentioned as a real challenge that remains today, but also inflation in relation to the SEIS, or I never know whether to say the acronym or whatever, SEIS. Support for Tech City that turned East London into a global hub for start-ups and innovation. We had the modernisation of government services through the creation of the Government Digital Service and platforms like gov.uk. And we invested heavily in digital infrastructure, expanding gigabit broadband coverage very substantially. Now, the honourable member for Strangford talked about how we as parties like to help one another, help every corner of the United Kingdom. And I remember particular help given on gigabit broadband to the DUP when a particular political deal was done a few years ago. Now, over the following decade, that strategy paid off, and entire sectors from fintech to artificial intelligence, cybersecurity to digital health took root and expanded. And today, the UK digital sector generates well over 200 billion in GVA, employing 2.6 million people, with our digital companies' combined market valuation at $1.2 trillion in 2025. It's the largest tech ecosystem in Europe and among the largest outside the US and China. So I confess, when Labour wangs on about 14 years, I say yes, 14 years in which Britain built Europe's most dynamic tech sector, 14 years in which the economic output of our digital sector more than doubled. But we were also alive to the risks that a strong tech sector could pose if not managed correctly, and that's why we introduced major legislation to shape the digital economy, promoting competition and consumer choice. Principally, that was the Digital Markets, Competition and Consumers Act, which was there to address the market powers of the largest digital platforms. Now, the principle behind that legislation was simple and profoundly conservative. We believe that in a strong, competitive capitalist economy, success should come from innovation, talent, and providing a great product to the customer. not from gatekeeping power or monopoly control. And I think that brings us to the challenge at the heart of this debate, which is that in digital markets, power has concentrated in the hands of a handful of global firms. Now, these firms are brilliant firms. They bring many tools, many skills, and they bring scale. But that scale also has consequence. And if we're to prevent that scale being used to steamroller other businesses that may be more innovative or provide a better product to the consumer, and to also mean that we generate more of the growth and the value that we retain in this country rather than see it being taken abroad, we need digital markets to be open and competitive. Now, one obvious place for intervention is the mobile app ecosystem. For many digital businesses today, the App Store operated by Apple and Google do provide incredibly useful and efficient distribution platforms. But that value also comes with a toll, which is that it creates huge gatekeeping power for those companies. Consumers may not realise it, but this risks costing them and our economy significantly. Developers are often required to use the platform's payment systems and charge commissions of up to 30% on digital purchases. That is a gigantic revenue stream generated from not doing an awful lot. Now, those companies may argue that they provide security, they look at maintenance and so on, but the App Store commissions for Google and Apple are thought to be up to £2 billion each in net revenue when it comes to their UK operations. That means higher prices for consumers, fewer resources for innovation, and the more entrenchment happens then we get greater entrenchment and platform dominance. And then we throw our hands up and we say, well, what can realistically be done? What's the alternative to these companies? So it becomes a sort of downward spiral where we have less and less power to deal with these challenges. And the power extends far beyond simply running app stores. They control what developers can say to customers, they can control direct communications, they can insist on particular payment platforms and so on, and prevent developers from informing users when products are cheaper elsewhere. Now, my honourable friend for Bromley and Biggin Hill listed some critical examples. He also mentioned even companies like Amazon. Now, we'll all be familiar with the sheer power of Amazon, and if that power cannot sufficiently challenge the App Store market power, then it just speaks to the fact of what chance of a smaller British tech company. Now, the legislative framework to address this exists in that DMCC Act, which gave the Competition and Markets Authority conduct requirement powers. It allowed it to mandate specific behaviours. But developers, competition lawyers and tech businesses are telling me that they worry that the CMA has gone soft, with long investigations and voluntary remedies. They believe it reflects political direction. And I think this exposes a wider problem with the Labour government. Now, we left them with the strongest tech ecosystem in Europe, but I fear they have no real plan for growth. And as a result, they have a troubling reliance on big tech, because it's telling them they'll give them big investment headlines, but it risks entrenching dependency and stifling homegrown innovation. In their first set of returns, Labour ministers have met big tech firms roughly 70% more often than their Conservative predecessors. And it culminated in this US-UK tech deal where there was a lot of big headlines, but I'm not entirely sure what the substance was. There were some interesting articles this week from The Guardian about some of those deals, and I think there was a lot of circular investment going on. It was a very interesting debate yesterday in this place where Labour MPs themselves were starting to question some of what was going on and also worrying about the dependency that is being created with the security and economic implications that brings. Now, last year, the government asked the competition watchdog to support and contribute to the overriding national priority of economic growth. But if growth is defined as just bringing in big tech, then it's predictable that how the regulator is going to act. In February, the CMA approved voluntary commitments from Apple and Google. Now, in fairness, and I've spoken to them about this directly, they contend that this could deliver faster results. But smaller tech firms worry that this will delay action on the substantive issue of fees. And as we highlighted in yesterday's debate on tech sovereignty, the UK risks drifting into a position of high dependency and low resilience, where too much of our digital economy relies on infrastructure and platforms that we simply don't have any control over. And as I say, this matters not just for innovation, but for economic strength, for consumer protection, and for national security. And it's not an argument, I have to stress this is not an argument against American companies. It is an argument about competition and the dangers of competition's absence. In fact, courts in the US have already upheld these principles to the benefit of smaller US tech firms. We have to ensure an open digital market that is rewarding innovation from wherever it comes and giving UK consumers and developers the same freedoms that American developers can now enjoy because of that court ruling. And the same problem exists with the CMA's cloud inquiry, where the extraordinarily important issue of market concentration is also being examined. We expect a determination this month. AWS and Microsoft dominate that cloud market, and it's something that the government itself recognises as a chronic risk. It's a red light that really will be flashing more urgently after 3 recent global cloud outages, not to mention the destruction of AWS data centres in the Gulf. The answer to our chronic dependency must surely come through robust competition measures, and we await the CMA strategic market status decision with bated breath. One final point I'd like to make is that the rapid development of AI could, in the best case scenario, inject real competition into these markets, with AI agents empowering the consumer in the best case scenario, they say. Or, and this is my real worry, it could entrench this kind of market dominance and power consolidation that we've seen in other parts of the digital economy. And I ask the Minister, can the government and the regulator start to think about the power of agentic AI in particular? What happens when an AI starts curating products for the consumer in ways that could shut out smaller vendors from the picture or necessitate expensive deals with the AI giants to be able to get products into the agent's selection? I conclude by asking what kind of digital economy it is that we want. Do we want one that's dominated by a handful of global gatekeepers, or one where a broad range of innovative companies can compete, innovate and grow on merit, delivering a diverse economy and benefits to the consumer? As Conservatives, our view is very simple. We have to give UK tech firms the tools to win. That is low taxes so that innovators can invest and scale. It is cheap, abundant energy and high-quality digital infrastructure. It is access to the best global talent and the celebration of successful people, not the taxing of them out of the country with envy-driven politics. It is about public procurement that backs British innovation. It's about deeper pools of investable capital. And critically, it's about strong competition policy, ensuring no company, no matter how large and powerful, can use its market position to drive up prices and crowd out competition. That was our approach in office. It remains our vision for the future of Britain's tech economy, and I hope the Minister can set out some specifics about how he too recognises the importance of competition in the digital sphere.
Minister, now, and if the Minister could make sure he allows 2 minutes at the end for the mover to wind up.
Thank you, Mr Betts, and it's a pleasure to serve with you in the chair. Can I firstly thank the honourable member for Bromley and Biggin Hill for securing this important debate on the government support for UK-based tech companies. I'm grateful to him and to all other honourable members across the room for their contributions today as well. They have done a sterling job in putting forward the fact that the UK is truly a buzzing tech economy in every single part of the country, right across the constituencies represented here and beyond too. This government, Mr Betts, is committed to supporting the UK's thriving tech ecosystem, and we are proud to be home to the largest tech sector in Europe, valued at nearly £1 trillion. The success of UK-based technology firms benefits us all. These are some of the fastest growing parts of the economy, already employing millions of people, and the innovations they bring are delivering major benefits to people and communities right across the country, transforming everything from the way we work to how we manage our health. Given some luxury of time, I propose to take each of the points raised by honourable members as well. Firstly, in gratitude to the honourable member for Bromley and Biggin Hill, I appreciate very much his points on competition policy shared by the Shadow Minister as well. I, of course, am reluctant to mention any specifics about interventions, investigations or engagements that the CMA is pursuing as an independent regulator. The commitments that the CMA has looked at, as the Shadow Minister acknowledged, could be quicker than a full conduct requirement process. And the CMA assures the government that they continue to monitor firm compliance. If Apple and Google fail to meet their commitments, the CMA will consider the use of statutory powers to take further action as well. And I'm conscious that they have just finished consulting, as the Shadow Minister mentioned, on the first set of remedies and commitments in light of the designations of Google in search and Apple and Google in mobile platform markets as well. And I expect to hear very soon on greater detail as well as firm timelines on that particular point. The virtue of the digital markets regime from the last government is indeed that it's flexible, it is proportionate, it allows remedies that in some part are quicker than others, and in others where it's due more robust so as well. And so the government's expectation is very much that the CMA acts in line with its growth and competition mandate. Those two, I think, are much more overlapping than we often give credit to the CMA for as well. I will briefly take this opportunity, Mr. Betts, to address the Shadow Minister's particular history of the UK tech sector over the last 14 years, having been in that sector through part of that time. Whilst I value very much some of the growth seen in that period, I am also conscious of the particular fact that drove me into politics, which is that over that entire period, one of the most productive periods in UK, in global technology markets, in this country, no one growing up here saw ever a company go from 0 to top 10. In the United States, in that same period, 8 out of 10 people did. The levels of capital investment in IT in this country were materially below that in the United States. When the Shadow Minister talks about the benchmark as being European growth, I fear, I have to say to her, given its ambition season on Conservative front benches, she might want to consider joining that too and raising the ambition to being a global first, not just a European relative first. In that period, Mr. Betts, as both the member for Bromley and Biggin Hill and the Shadow Minister noted, power did indeed concentrate in the cloud market in particular and right across US big tech. It was clear to me that at the time the government was much more focused on engagement with US big tech and exactly the trend that they described on the other side, that power concentrated in the cloud market in particular. I think her points on agentic AI are very well made, and I will make sure that we're thinking about that deeply, as well as engaging with the CMA on the particular implications for agentic AI and the possibility of bundling and therefore limited competition that might result in as well. The member, my honourable friend from Caerphilly, raised the virtues of the Welsh ecosystem. It is an ecosystem that I know and deeply value personally too. I value his advocacy for Academy in particular in his constituency. The points he makes on clusters anchored by Welsh universities is a really well-made point. As a government, we have committed over £1.5 billion, particularly to the question of how research translates into commercialisation, and I'd be very happy to engage further with him on any particular instances where the government can do more in his constituency and beyond. To my honourable friend, the AI MP, who I know is not in his place anymore, the honourable member for Leeds South West makes a very similar and important point about Leeds' Nexus Hub. It is a city that I visited in this role in particular as well, and I valued in particular Leeds' tech sector's contributions to healthcare and financial services innovation. To the honourable member for Tunbridge Wells, I think he makes a deeply important point on procurement, shared, I know, by the Liberal Democrats spokesperson as well, and in particular I have an interest in defence procurement that I hope to come to in my speech more fully shortly too. To the honourable member for Tiverton and Minehead, who I know is no longer in her place, I am conscious that she has always been a strong champion for family businesses in the context of technology and agriculture, and her ambition for starting, scaling and staying here for UK tech businesses is one I deeply share. To my honourable friend from Weston-super-Mare, who I know has deep experience and is also no longer in his place, despite that experience, I agree very much that whilst our policy is often in a good place, there is a lot more for us to do in spreading the awareness of that policy right across it, and I'd be happy to visit him and indeed others in being a small part of spreading that as well. To my honourable friend from Paisley in Renfrewshire as well, can I first and foremost thank her for her strong advocacy for the Innovation Zone, both prior to coming to this House and subsequently to it. She has won £38.7 million for travel support in particular and transport support more generally in that Innovation Zone. And can I say how excited I am about the historic AI growth and investment in the wider region as well, which I hope will create a series of opportunities for investment as well as for young people growing up in and around Glasgow to take part in it. Her particular mention of photonics is a deeply important one. Photonics is not just a Scottish strength, not just a British strength, but an increasingly important vector for national security strength globally when it comes to the semiconductor context in particular, and I'm grateful for her championing that particular subsector as well. To the honourable member for Strangford, Northern Ireland is indeed close to my heart. I actually grew up visiting Northern Ireland and Belfast for lots of debating competitions, and he'll be glad to hear that I was back in this role at the AI Collaboration Centre and Ulster University, seeing not just the world-leading cyber capabilities in Belfast and Northern Ireland, but also the transformational effect that Ulster University's investments have had in the city as well in terms of creating opportunities for young people. He will be further glad to hear that just this morning I spent time with the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland talking about our shared ambition to do even more in supporting the cyber and AI sectors in Northern Ireland as well. To the Honourable Member for West Dorset, I think his points on energy tech are well made. I feel very strongly that our plans on clean energy are best pursued if they make the most of AI and modern technology as well. And I think they're pursued with a deeper sense of building public consensus if we're able to show that our clean energy values align with our prosperity aspirations when it comes to AI and technology, not just domestically, but in Britain's ability to, as a result, export lessons and technology to other places and to really move the needle on global climate change as well. I'm very happy to give away.
Thank you for giving way. Shortly beforehand, he was saying that he'd like to visit Westminster and other locations, given I have him here and an opportunity today to speak about the fantastic company Syntella that is one of the UK's biggest success stories, especially in the fibre optic space. Perhaps I could take this chance for extending an invitation to visit beautiful West Dorset to him.
Mr. Betts, I have a 100% record so far of committing to visits when asked about them, so I don't want to set too much of a precedent at this point, but given the numbers in this room, I'd be happy to take the member up on his kind offer as well. And I will also say on his important point about SME representation on trade missions that certainly on the three, the US, South Korea and India visits that I've been, we have actually primarily focused on SMEs in those contexts. If he has recommendations for firms that would benefit from such engagement, I'd be very keen on taking him up on it, and perhaps we can discuss it in West Dorset over the visit as well. To the Liberal Democrat spokesman, I will also mention to the honourable member for West Dorset that on the mention of word clouds, I know a thing or two about word clouds, and to the presence of ecosystem, I will add a deeply thriving precedent as well to that, because that is indeed where Britain's ecosystem is. To the Liberal Democrat spokesperson, I am delighted to hear about the history of entrepreneurship in her family, keen on any lessons from her mother about Twitter engagement, but also share very much and value her ambition for more. And I'd say that I think her dream is shared across the House as well, and I'll come to the particular 5 points which I think the government is equally focused on as well. So in that context, Mr. Betts, I will now set out some of the things that the government is very much doing in this particular context. We start, as I mentioned, from a position of considerable global strength. 4 of the world's top 10 universities are in the UK. We have a proud history of technological innovation. There is clearly more to be done. That is why in our modern industrial strategy, we set out the first dedicated plan to support the UK's digital and technology sector, alongside a separate plan for life sciences. For digital and technologies, we have focused on 6 frontier technologies with the greatest potential to drive growth: advanced connectivity, AI, cybersecurity, engineering, biology, quantum, and semiconductors. By 2035, we want the UK to be one of the world's top 3 places to create, invest in, and scale up a fast-growing technology business. Building on the industrial strategy, we went further still at the 2025 autumn budget. We set out a package of additional support for founders and innovators to start and scale businesses here in the UK, including reforms to government procurement, tax, and our public finance institutions. As the Chancellor made clear, this government is backing the next generation of UK tech startups and entrepreneurs. These plans are about making sure that we're supporting our tech companies at every stage of their development. A great tech company starts with an idea. That is why we're making a record public investment in R&D, with spending rising to £22.6 billion by 2029-30. We have one of the most generous R&D tax credit relief systems in the entire world, and I have personally heard testament to that from a series of founders in the UK ecosystem, not least in AI over the last few weeks. Through our industrial strategy, we are also making sure that investment is targeted to bring innovation to market, with £7 billion for innovative companies to scale and commercialise technological and scientific breakthroughs. To ensure that the benefits are felt right across the country, we're backing high potential innovation clusters throughout the UK through programmes like the Local Innovation Partnership Fund as well. Brilliant ideas alone, of course, are not enough to grow a business, and so we're taking a whole-of-government approach to ensure that the right conditions are in place for them to reach their full potential. We're expanding the British Business Bank to give high-growth tech firms access to long-term scale-up capital. We're upskilling private investors to invest in deep tech through our Science and Technology Venture Capital Fellowship Programme. We're ensuring firms have access to the best skills and talent through our £187 million Tech First Skills programme, and hoping to attract the very best minds in the world through the government's Global Talent Task Force, as well as the £54 million Global Talent Fund. But of course, we are not stopping there. Across the board, we are looking at how we can use government's wider levers to support our technology ecosystem. Part of this is about infrastructure, whether that is connecting people, businesses and universities through initiatives like the Oxford to Cambridge Growth Corridor, or funding the specialist infrastructure that tech companies need through the AI research resource and engineering biology scale-up infrastructure programs. It is also about regulations that help, not hinder, new products to reach the market. That is why we have set up the Regulatory Innovation Office, which has invested over £12.5 million already in helping regulators adopt new tools and approaches. Sometimes it is challenging to bring new technologies to market, and so we're also reforming how government procures technologies to lead the way and back British SMEs. At the autumn budget, we announced an advanced market commitment backed with £100 million in government funding to buy products from promising UK novel chip companies, an important economic as well as national security focus once they reach a high-performance benchmark. I know the Ministry of Defence has committed to a significant budget allocation to novel technology procurement, and I'm keen on making sure that the design and process for that is as compelling as the scale of that ambition. Finally, while this debate is about UK-based businesses, we must also recognise that we're part of a global market with the huge opportunities that offers. We're working hard with our international partners to boost collaboration and open new markets for innovative firms as well globally. We have agreed industrial strategy partnerships with France, with Japan. We have a Saudi-UK strategic partnership. We have an India-UK technology security initiative, and we're pursuing deeper connections still with other key markets. Last autumn, the US top tech firms mentioned across this debate committed to investing £31 billion in the UK as well. Mr. Betts, right across the things that end up mattering to startups here, in capital, the force of the BBB investing more, the National Wealth Fund investing more, a sovereign AI unit investing earlier, the pension fund reforms through Mansion House that are spurring on greater investment. We are bringing capital to the service of British startups. In the context of compute, a critical input for AI, both our AI Growth Zone programme and AI Research Resource programmes are making sure British companies are front of queue when it comes to adequate compute for AI. When it comes to government as a customer, the advanced market commitment and the reforms I mentioned at the MOD aspire to doing so and making sure that government is the best partner UK startups can benefit from. When it comes to building a sense of community of talent in this country, both the Global Talent Task Force, the Global Talent Fund, but also very crucially the Entrepreneurial Management Incentive Scheme, now one of the world's best tax incentive schemes for early stage employees to have deep equity participation in startups, means that Britain is front of the queue in convening a compelling community of tech talent as well. When it comes to clarity on regulation, the AI Growth Lab, the Regulatory Innovation Office reforms I've mentioned, as well as growth mandates for regulators, means that Britain is regulating dynamically, moving regulation at the pace of technological progress. And at the heart of it, Mr. Betts, a culture which prizes innovation, which says to entrepreneurs that their success is our national success and their companies are national champions when they create jobs and invest in frontier innovation here. We are radically shifting Britain's culture to a culture of agency and innovation. And in that context, I'm grateful to all members across the House for their joint partnership in that mission. I know the UK's exceptional technology sector is a key national asset. The steps this government is taking will ensure that UK-based tech companies thrive at every stage of their growth.
To wind up.
Thank you, Mr. Betts, and I'd like to thank everybody for their contributions today. If I could start with the party spokesman, I would like to pay testament to my honourable friend, the Shadow Secretary of State, for her wisdom and her towering intellect in recognising the self-evident glamour which is dripping from me, even as I stand. I would say it takes one to know one. She, as ever, made informed points, and of course I agree with them because, you know, she's my boss. Thanks to the Minister for his response as well. There were many points in there I'd agree with. Some I'd like to have further conversations on, but particularly the point around procurement, I think is really important. That is going to become an increasing challenge as we move forward. For the Liberal Democrat spokesperson from Harpenden and Berkhamsted, 5-point plan which I would struggle to disagree with, and I think particularly the outcome-focused regulations, so that we're ensuring we've got that proper competition. It's encouraging to me that all three of the party spokespeople spoke from an informed and passionate place, and I think that bodes well for the future. I think if I could turn my focus to backbench contributions, the member for Caerphilly talked about what a targeted group of engineers could do when they're given the space to flourish. And I think you made some important points there about the UKRI and how that needs to be reorganised. And actually, we met very recently with the new chief executive, and I think there's a lot of work to do there. So I think it's something the Minister would also like to focus on, and just pushing the way that the UKRI distributes some of those funds. To my honourable and gallant friend from Tunbridge Wells, I did a quick Wikipedia on you, and I found out we were in the same regiment, which I didn't know before. I think you were a young second lieutenant when I was a mere legend of history. But we'll meet afterwards and we'll swap some stories. But you highlighted the absurdity of losing potential unicorns, these companies that start here and can grow here, and they're not able to get to the place they need to get to because there's not that incubator for growth. And I think that was a point very well made. The Honourable Member for Paisley and Renfrewshire North talked about access to finance and how important it is for those great companies that you highlighted, not just in your constituency but right across Scotland. If there was just that injection of capital, then actually we could see some sort of glowing achievements from what can be achieved there. The member for West Dorset talked about how technology can be used, especially and focusing on climate, because there are problems we're going to face over the next 10, 20 years where we're going to need that technology developed. And it's going to have to be, some of that's going to have to be sovereign technology as well, so that we can face some of those challenges. And last but never, ever least, the member for Strangford. He rose to his feet to say that he has many great things to say about Northern Ireland, and I think we all know that Northern Ireland has many great things to say about him. I was amused by the intervention that asked if the Honourable Member had spoken to a company in Northern Ireland. The Honourable Member has spoken to everybody in Northern Ireland, twice. But he makes the important point about cybersecurity and how that industry has grown in the last 20 to 30 years. So if I can push a little bit gently with the Minister, something that was highlighted to us at Spacecom last week was the development of that defence investment plan and getting that out as quickly as possible. I won't put the boot in because the debate has been well-natured, but I think there's a lot in industry who are really looking for that to be brought forward. So I'm encouraged by the debate we've had here. I think it's been well-natured and well-informed. And I think all of us agree that if we get this right, if we get this focus correctly, we can be a world leader in this industry, not just punching above our weight, but punching as technological champions. And it gives us an opportunity to take the UK economy into the second half of the 21st century and beyond. So thank you for your contributions.
The question is that this House has considered government support for UK-based tech companies. As many of that have been say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. We will now suspend till 4 o'clock as the mover is here for the next debate, but not the Minister at this stage.